Hello, folks. This is Chris KY4CKP. Today on LCARA HAMRadio, Brian KY4BDP and I take some time to respond to a couple of questions that we've been seeing fairly frequently in our videos, and that is, the fact that our club is pretty active and that we seem to have lots of money to spend on projects and things. So we just wanted to kind of respond to that because we've thought about making a video like this for quite some time. So stick with us. It's a little bit longer video, but we want to address these comments because we think it's very important, and it's something we've been trying to work on and continue to work on here at LCARA HAMRadio. So that's what's coming up next. Stick with us.
I'm KY4BDP Brian.
I'm KY4CKP Chris.
And folks, we wanted to bring you the 10 ways to grow your ham radio club or maybe start a new club. And Chris, I think we've gotten a couple of comments over the last 2.5 years that we've been doing a YouTube channel. One of the comments is usually, I wish my club was as active as yours or Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. Or I wish we had your club's bank account and for all the projects that we get into. And I wanted to, for us to do a video today, we wanted to do this video because we get those comments relatively frequently, and it can, I'm not exactly sure how to put this, but you want to be able to show folks what clubs can do. But at the same time, you're not trying to toot your own horn. You're just trying to give them ideas of what they can do.
Yeah, and we've tried to communicate that throughout the last almost 3 years, maybe. It's all about somebody has to start. Somebody has to start putting in the effort, and we were interested in a lot of different things. We were brand new. We're still pretty new hams, and so we were not afraid to make a mess. Not afraid to jump in, make a mess, and that's the thing, though. And until somebody is willing to do that, one or more folks, you may have all kinds of resources and assets you don't even know about. So that's just part of what we've been trying to show is just get started and open the floodgates, and you'd be surprised maybe what you and your club can get into.
Right, because our club wasn't like bad at all. I mean, we had real good leadership, a really strong president, a decent amount of money, but not a lot. The club was doing a lot of testing sessions. The club was doing the occasional fish fry and Christmas dinner and monthly nets or weekly nets and monthly meetings. So the club wasn't like totally not doing anything. And that's another thing. We don't want to say that our club wasn't a good club. Our club was right there kind of where a lot of average clubs were, but average doesn't mean they weren't doing things. They weren't dropping completely off, but they weren't also growing as much as maybe they had seen in years earlier. And when Chris and I got involved, I mean, we're younger and we wanted to try some new things. And I think the club president and others on leadership recognized that this would be a great way to build up some additional activities and so forth. But you need some members, like you were saying, that can take the ball and run.
Yeah, that's just it. I think what happens with a lot of clubs is they climb a lot of mountains, and then they start to enjoy all the things they've done. Well, 5 or 10 years can go by, and then things have degraded, and people are getting older, and you maybe lose a couple of members. And I think that's what happens to a lot of clubs is they probably did a lot of stuff at one point, and then you're kind of done, right? You're done, and you're just enjoying everything, but stuff degrades, and it takes maintenance. And I think we sort of came in probably at an opportune time in this club. And we had all this interest in every aspect of ham radio and running repeaters and everything. And we helped just bring some new energy to the table. And I think that's what happens to a lot of clubs. And a lot of times people, they want that, but sometimes you just need to be the person who actually brings that.
Well, that's what I would really like to emphasize with this video. One of the main points of emphasis is somebody has to bring the energy. And, maybe that's you. Whoever's watching this video, maybe that's you. You have to bring some energy to this hobby. Do not expect the club to bring you energy. It's the other way around. You have to bring energy to the club. And that's true of any organization. You have to have folks that are willing to put in the time and provide a little bit of resources, money, and energy and consistency. And that's one of the second concepts I wanted to mention today is you want to be extremely consistent with your efforts. If there's another thing to take out of this video is consistency. The other concept that I wanted to mention this morning with our video is for the club to grow, you have to start taking some baby steps. If the club has been really level, hasn't really been going or doing or growing or whatever, and you want to start adding energy into the club, you want to start taking baby steps. What you don't want to do is try to do 10 things in 1 year. It's not realistic. I'm certainly, Chris will tell you, I'm certainly one of those guys that wants to get things done, more projects, but you've got to be a little bit more thoughtful. And that's one of the things, again, I've really enjoyed about our club president, AC4DM, Don and his wife, Wanda, because they've been with the club for 50 years practically, is you got to have an even keel, but introduce new things as baby steps and then let them become more permanent as new ideas, new activities, and then add more things as you go along.
Right. And I agree with that completely. It's true with everything. It's like going to the gym or anything. If you want long-term success, you have to do it consistently. So, and as we're going to talk about in our talking points today, that's what you want to have. Is you want to have some consistency, bring some activities in that maybe the club either has never had or they faded away, bring them back. But again, it takes somebody to add some additional energy into the system in order for the system to be capable of doing new things. And so if you can get one or two people, and we're looking at you, whoever you are, to do that, then you'd be surprised what you can kick off and rekindle in other members, and of course getting some new members, as we'll mention a couple of things.
Right.
So we've got several talking points we want to hit, just to things we've been trying to do, and probably been reasonably successful at, and of course just for us, we've had a good time along the way.
Exactly right. So Chris, the 10 ways to help your club grow, or maybe as you're starting a new club, 10 things that you might start to take a look at. And again, don't try to do all 10 of these at one time, but start adding them into the rotation. So Chris is going to start with number 1.
All right. So we were talking about this, and we've talked about this video for, and you've heard this a couple of times now, a couple of years now. We've talked about this video, this concept, because it was something that was very personal for us in our club. We could probably do a whole other list, and if there's interest, we might even do another list. I mean, this is a video where we very much want to get everyone's feedback down in the comments below. What is your club doing? What would you like your club to do, and that kind of stuff. So give us some good feedback on this video. We hope it's helpful to folks. So number 1, look for ways to get members involved. And this was something that Brian and I, we wanted to get involved. So we were just basically, don't be afraid to make a mess, right? And so one of the things that we early on discovered by starting to get involved with the club was still doing organized work days and things, which we'll talk about how those are helpful to get your club active, keep it active, and even begin to grow it. And one of the things we learned early on was we had talked about emergency communications, because that's a big part of what HAMRadio can do for a community, whether you personally or your club. And we were talking about communication trailer, having a communications trailer. And of course, there's videos on those on the internet and stuff. And there's really cool ones by some of the big names like Icon and others. And then our club president says, yeah, we have one out in my barn. And we were like, what do you mean the club has an emergency communications trailer? What do you mean? Yeah, we have one. And it's been sitting there for I don't know how many years, almost 10 years, or I don't know, something. So right. Some years ago, they got a grant, and he bought a trailer and started it. And we said, hey, we'd like to do even more with it. And so that became our first big project where we wanted to, ourselves be involved in working on it, but get as many club members as possible. And I know we've had well over 10 members, 15 members helping us throughout the time. We did a whole series of videos on that, which I know a lot of you enjoyed. And so that was our first kind of big project, and a lot of us had a lot of fun on that.
Absolutely. It's one of on our playlist. If you guys haven't watched the building of the MCOM trailer, like Chris said, the trailer was there, but nothing on the inside had really been done to it, or not a lot. And watch the entire series. And it took us, what, Chris? We're still doing things, but we'll say a year and a half.
Yeah, probably a good year and a half to really get it where we wanted to see it, in a little bit more modern build of it.
So this was a large project that the club can get behind, and look for a yearly large project if you can. You know, the MCOM trailer was kind of our first one, but it could be some type of a large antenna tower, or it could be a new repeater shack in a new location, and you got to start outfitting that. And of course, we've got another series on the abandoned repeater side for doing something like that as well. But one large project in a given year. All righty, let's move on to number 2. Okay, so number 2, one of the things that we've written down here is to look for ways to raise money, because one of the comments we get fairly often in the comments is your club must have a huge bank account. And right off the bat, Chris and I want to dispel this belief that we have a huge bank account. We don't. We have a nice little nest egg in there, but it's not enough to cover some of the projects that we've been doing. And one of the things that we wanted to do, again, bringing energy into the club and getting other folks involved, was looking for ways to raise money. Nobody likes to raise money, do they, Chris? I mean, it's just one of those things, like nobody wants to talk about it, but the hobby can't grow. You can't do the maintenance that Chris mentioned and other things, any of the projects, if you don't have some money. Now, for a lot of clubs, raising money is nothing more than some dues that you pay yearly. A lot of clubs, it could be from $15 to $30 a year for a club due. But if you've only got 20 to 50 members, that's not a lot of money. Some clubs collect that money one time at the very beginning of the year, and other clubs like to spread it out over the year. Our club spreads it out over the year, so we don't get all of that money up front. But raising money, and one of the things that Chris and I started looking at was merchandise. T-shirts, hats like I'm wearing today. Chris has one of the button-up shirts on that's really nice. We've got patches, so you can see I've got a patch here, but I've also got a patch on my hat, and so on. Merchandise can help a club, even if it's just the members buying some of the merchandise. And you're not going to spend, let's say the shirt cost you $10, you would charge a member maybe 15 or 20, something like that, but not an exorbitant amount for members. But you can also sell that merchandise to events that you go to and things like that. It'll raise a little bit of money. Don't expect merch to take off, where you're selling, 1,000 shirts. Unless you're a big YouTube channel or something like that, that's not going to happen. The other thing that we did, and it was early on, and when Chris and I got started, was some type of a raffle. And what we did was we called it a Deadpool, which was from the movie, but it's not really a Deadpool, but we had a member buy a new radio, and the screen protector that comes on the 7300 just to protect it from scratches and so forth. We actually did a 3-month Deadpool where people could buy dates on those 3 months within the calendar for $5. And if the member, who unbeknownst to anybody else, took off that little film on that day, that member would get half the pot, and the rest of the pot would go to the club fund or the club bank account. And that was really successful. We only sold the dates for $5 each, but it's over 3 months, so it was close to 90 days worth of dates. And it just so happened, seriously and honestly, it just so happened that the date that he pulled it off was a date that hadn't been sold. So all of the money went into the fund, but somebody could have gotten half of that money, I believe is the way we had it set up. But you can also do raffles. We're probably going to be doing a raffle sometime next year where we're going to give away a gift card, and we'll sell tickets for $10. And the gift card might be $200, $300, but we'll sell tickets for $10 each. And you don't have to do a raffle where you give something away like a radio, because that would really only apply to ham radio folks, but do something generic that anybody would want to buy a ticket for. You can have cookouts, but have people put in a little bit of money when they come to the cookout. a lot of times people will bring a dish to our cookouts, like fish fries and the Christmas party. We don't charge for the meal or anything per se, but you can have a jar up front that says, hey, kick in a little bit today for the club, $5, $10, $15, $20. And you'd be amazed at how much you can raise at a cookout or a project event where you're building something, but it's just a little tip jar, for instance, on those kinds of events. So you can raise money. It's not going to be thousands of dollars, but you're talking about a few hundred here and there throughout the year, accumulative as your membership grows from dues, merchandise, raffles, tip jars, things like that. You can raise $1,000 to $2,000 throughout the year, and that will help. So number two, you can raise money, but again, be imaginative and creative, but don't keep, nickel and diming your folks, because folks don't want to have that. But through tip jars and raffles and things like that, you can raise money.
So let's talk about number 3. Take stock of your current assets. Now, this is an area where I would say that our club was pretty rich. We have somebody, our club president, who has had pretty much a lifetime accumulation of all kinds of stuff, hardware and resources. Not every club is going to have that, but everybody has something. And you've also got whatever you run, repeaters and maybe buildings. And so the first thing to do is make sure you have a good accounting of what the club assets are. Now, part of that, and I think this can get overlooked pretty easily, especially if it is even an older club sometimes. Don't forget your mental assets. What knowledge and skills do your members have? What do you bring to the table? It could be sewing. Maybe you need to recover, the pads in the MCOM trailer for people to sit on. Now, we didn't have a direct member who did that for us, but if you have that ability, it can be almost anything. Maybe you know a guy, right? That's a really handy set of contacts, people that know people. So that's a good thing. Take a good accounting of the club assets, physical, with the members knowing what they can do, and then you'll also have a good idea, well, what's the status of all these resources? Where does our maintenance efforts need to go? And what's that going to cost in the form of time and money and knowledge? And start building your list. Start getting organized. And that's a big part of it, is get organized, know what you've got, know what you need. And when you're fundraising and things, you can say, hey, we're fundraising for this purpose. We're fundraising for this piece of gear, where it's not just the club is asking for money. We have a specific need in the club. Everybody, uses this asset. It's now 5-10 years old, whatever. So, yeah, take stock of your club assets, and don't forget the people. The people can be some of your strongest assets. All kinds of knowledge can be helpful. We've got people that are in the computer field, like Brian and I are. Well, that helps sometimes in certain areas. So take stock of your assets and start building your plan, especially maintenance schedules and fundraising efforts, because you need to have those yearly plans, but you need to start looking forward into the future. 2 to 5 years. What are we going to need in 2 to 5 years? If we're going to need a significant chunk of money in 2 to 5 years, let's start doing some fundraising and beginning that process now, so it doesn't hit us all at once. Okay?
Right.
So that's a big part of it too, is take stock of your club assets, know what you've got, and don't forget your people, and get things written down, get them organized, and then you can start looking at your yearly plans, your yearly big projects. Okay, it'll help all the rest of managing the club.
All right, number 4. Look for ways to advertise your club to the community. Folks, we're still building on this at LCARA, but one of the things I hear is, HAMRadio is supposed to be a community service. Well, is your club actually acting as a community service representative? HAMRadio is in emergency preparedness and weather alerts and things like that, but you can make your club so much more valuable to the community beyond just those things. Not that those two things aren't incredibly important, because they are, but look for ways to advertise your club to the community so that your community becomes aware that your club even exists. A lot of clubs are so insular that the only people who know about the club are the people who are in the club. Nobody else in the community even knows. How many times, Chris, have we heard, HAMRadio, is that still a thing? And that's because people don't know. Now, what we've tried to do in our community to get that ball rolling is to get involved in other events that we can actually help out on. These could be walks for the Cancer Society, for whatever other kinds of walks, Alzheimer's and so forth. And those types of walks need communications a lot of times. They need people out on the route, maybe dispensing water, have the ability to call somebody if somebody needs an emergency assist or whatever. Festivals. We have a lot of festivals in our small town. They're a lot of times downtown, but they can also be elsewhere. We have the Summer Nights Cruise, and we've done some videos with that. We participate in Summer Nights Cruise, not because we're bringing any cars to the show, it's a car show, but to show people in the community that we exist as a club, and they use wireless communications during that event. They don't tap into our club directly, but we've got a spot and we're there. And possibly even sporting events. Think about the types of events in your community, whether you're in a big city or a small town, where your club could lend communications assistance. And probably the best example I can put out there, and we'll put a video here up on the screen probably, is we helped out on a Jeep event. What was really fun about that Jeep event was it's kind of an off-road event, but it is in the backwoods of southeastern Kentucky, where there's very little communications for cell phones and things like that. And we put members out on the trail, and we had our emergency communications trailer to act as a central base of operations, where if somebody broke down or if somebody needed assistance, we could then communicate with the event sponsor to say, hey, on this part of the route, this is where we have a problem, and they're going to need some assistance. Look for ways to help out other organizations in your community. They'll appreciate it. It gets your members out there participating, practicing their ham radio skill sets, and those things can be done annually. And once you get 2 or 3 of those on your calendar, you look forward to them. So number 4, look for ways to advertise your club to the community through walks, festivals, special events, sporting events, that sort of thing.
All right. And number 5, attend as many hamfests in a given area as possible. And this has been something that, again, personally, Brian and I have been very interested in. We heard very quickly that there were some big hamfests around the country, and we'd never been to one of those, so we wanted to do that. And there are some smaller regional ones here in Kentucky. It gives you an opportunity to meet other hams, all other clubs. This is, I think, a big thing. Meet some other clubs. We've met clubs slightly outside the state of Kentucky, but they're a little bit of a border to us. But that's okay, too, right? You can talk around the world on ham radio. You can meet YouTube people. If you want to meet famous people like Brian and myself, you could come to some of these ham fests, okay? We got recognized down at Huntsville, Alabama. I'm not ashamed to say it.
True.
But they can also be a lot of fun. You don't have to spend a lot of money. But, of course, typically the big vendors are showing off their newest wares, the newest radios and things. You get to see them early, maybe get a little bit hands-on with them. So, there's the kind of, I guess, the big 3. Hamvention up in Xenia, Ohio, which I've been to, once or twice now. Hamcation, which Brian went to down in Florida, and the big one in Huntsville. And there's other regional ones, and some of those are probably pretty good size. We've been to an area here called Cave City. It has a pretty good sized one, which is out near Mammoth Caves, if you're familiar with the Mammoth Caves recreation area here in Kentucky.
Right.
Largest above... out of the ocean, I guess, explored cave system in the world. Lots of camping and hiking and stuff near there. So go to some hamfests. Not only could you potentially get some good deals on some gear or some hardware you need, but just meet other hams, other clubs maybe. And if you are a club and you can get several people to go, if you can get some shirts or something, just doesn't have to be expensive. Maybe just a T-shirt. You've got a club color or something. Get your logo on it, and just represent. Just represent and try to meet some other clubs and meet other folks that are out there and have a good time. But it's an activity, and try to get people interested in the activity and get a group to go and enjoy it. But that's a way to get out and enjoy the hobby. Get your club out there a little bit, okay? Because, again, part of what we want to do with our clubs is we'd like to grow our clubs, right? We don't want to be so exclusive that we evaporate into nothing. right? The first rule about Ham Club is not to not talk about Ham Club. The first rule is to talk about Ham Club and share it with other people. So attend as many ham fests as you can. It's supporting other folks. And again, of course, part of that is you might get some good inexpensive gear or something that you needed. And again, it's something the club can do as a group as well. And maybe offer to drive some people if they don't want to drive or something, and carpool. But yeah, attend the ham fest and stuff. That's what we've been trying to do. And we know the last couple of years have been challenging, but things hopefully are beginning to start to get back to more of a normal type of activities and things. So I think that's another good thing we can do for clubs and as a club. Attend your ham fest and try to get other people involved in that. And that helps build excitement in the, group activities help build excitement for any club.
And the only thing I would add to that, Chris, that's all great stuff, is I remember when I went to Hamcation as an example of why you go to these events, I got a chance to meet one of the YouTubers, Eric, with HAMRadio Concepts, and I got a chance to ask him and a couple of the Vero Beach Club's members what were activities that they were into, so that maybe we could import some of those activities into our club to inject new opportunities for membership to participate in.
And in fact, we did implement a couple of those things.
All righty. Number 6. One of the things that I find that I hear both online in comments and just going to Hamfest, people will say, well, my club's not very active. And the first thing that comes into my mind is, well, is it because they're really not active, or is it because they're not communicating what they're doing? And so number 6 is communicate to members through social media. I think old school folks, and that's not a put down, it's just folks who came up in a different era, the social media is not something that they're used to taking advantage of, potentially, at least potentially. And when you have options like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you can take advantage of some of those tools within your club. You don't have to be YouTubers like Chris and I are as far as putting out content, but you might use YouTube to capture an event within your club so that you can display that maybe at your Christmas dinner or something like that. Other ways to communicate outside of social media, if that's not your thing, is a newsletter. Lots of clubs have had newsletters. There's 2 or 3 clubs in our area that do newsletters. And that's still a perfectly legitimate way to communicate with your members. When's testing going to be? What activities are coming up? Are there any training opportunities and so forth that other members might be interested in? They're not going to know, if they don't regularly come to monthly meetings and so forth, they're not going to know what the club is doing without some type of communication. Our club, we like to utilize our monthly meeting. We like to use our Facebook page. We like to use our Instagram. Obviously, we use YouTube and potentially email to get some of the word out so that your members know what's going on, and you get better attendance when they know when these things are going on. I'd love to tell you folks that ham radio activities are high priorities for your club members, but sometimes due to family commitments, vacations, and other things that are going on in their lives, they forget about these events. Communicate when those events are going to happen. We have a web page. We have a calendar on the web page. Anybody can go look at it at any time to see what we're doing that month or in the future, because we schedule and we advertise those events way out into the future. So web pages and all the things we've talked about, make sure that you're doing those things so that your members also know what you're doing, not just the core group that maybe does a lot of the activities, but everybody in the group at least has the option to participate, and they know when those things are going to happen.
All right, let's talk about number 7. If you're not already having a monthly meeting, start one. We've talked about it from a couple of angles. We're going to talk about it again here. Consistency. Brian mentioned consistency earlier. You want consistency in your club, and part of that is having consistent activities, and I think a big part of that should be having a monthly meeting. I know the last couple of years have been challenging, but there's ways to do it online, okay, which is not completely optimal, but it's a lot better than nothing because it helps maintain the consistency. So have your meetings so that you can meet face-to-face when possible. It could be, if you had to, in a parking lot. Just get people together in a parking lot if the weather's not too severe, and we can talk to folks and do whatever we have to do. But have monthly meetings to discuss club business, whether it's time to elect club officers or whatever needs to happen. Talk about projects the interest of projects, the funding of projects, right? All those kinds of things. It helps keep you organized, and it helps keep people involved. Again, it's the going to the gym. You have to do these things consistently as much as we're able to. And of course, sometimes people can't make a meeting. That's okay. But have your club meetings, use them to best effect. Again, communicate with your members, get their feedback on things. It's not supposed to be just one or two people who run the show in a ham radio club. We want and need feedback from everybody. What are people interested in? And listen to what they have to say. You can't do every project, you can't do every idea, but doesn't mean people don't have good ideas, and doesn't mean they don't have feedback. So have a monthly meeting and talk about the club business that's out there. Again, projects, you may talk about something for a year or two before something ever happens on it. But you start planting seeds of this idea and that idea, and it may not be feasible right now, but then a new member comes up and they've got some new knowledge, and then something becomes feasible that maybe wasn't before. So plant the seeds, and a lot of that is having a monthly meeting where you can talk about things.
All righty, number 8, add activities to the club calendar each month. Again, one of the comments that we've gotten at HamFest and in the videos is, my club just isn't doing much. And don't take that as a that's why we don't do things, is we just don't do things. The reason you're not doing things is you are not doing things. Your club is a representation of its members. Sometimes those members have done things in the past and they've been there, done that. They need somebody like you to come in with energy and say, well, how about some new types of events? Monthly meeting, Chris just talked about. Repeater and simplex-based nets. Our club does a Sunday net, which we call our weather net, and we do a Tuesday net. Both of these are on our 2-meter repeater here locally. And we utilize those nets to, again, practice our skill sets. It's a directed net, so you got to learn how to work with a directed net. It's not a free-for-all. And it also gives us an opportunity, especially new members, to get comfortable speaking with a microphone, speaking to other people, using the proper etiquette, putting their call sign out, and all the rest of it. We also do a simplex-based net. Now, the simplex-based net to me is even more fun, because you really have to cooperate to do a simplex-based net, because not everybody can hear net control. Whoever's running the net that day or that evening, their radio only gets out so far. If you're not familiar with simplex, you're not using a repeater, so you're only getting out as far as your antenna and your equipment can get out, which means you have to actually relay people into the net. That is a lot of fun. Oops. Almost knocked over my microphone here, Chris. But that can be a lot of fun, of actually getting people relayed into a net. Monthly project builds. One of the things I got from Eric at the Vero Beach Club down in Florida was they do project builds. And I don't know if theirs is just monthly, it might be bi-weekly, but regardless, some type of a project build, something small. We just came off of a project build, and we're really finishing up for some of our members of the automotive on-off switch that Chris just did a video on. You can buy those, but wouldn't it be more enticing for your members to learn how to solder, learn what the different components do, and allow your members that have that knowledge to then teach others? That's a big deal. Activity, monthly, building some type of small project. We also use that night for presentations. We don't have anything to build that week. We've had people in the club, and we've had people outside the club from some of the vendors come in and do some presentations. Those presentations are also very insightful. Work days at the repeater sites. We've gotten this comment quite frequently. My repeater site is really not doing very well. Well, that's usually due to just not upkeep and maintenance. Our club has monthly repeater site work days. Now, not everybody can come to these. Sometimes it's just 2 or 3 people. Sometimes, Chris, what do we have? I don't think you were there, actually. We had 8 people at the latest Monticello work day, where we were installing internet and doing gravel and doing a bunch of other stuff. And again, we did a video on that.
I was there.
Oh, you were there. Okay. Chris has to come all the way down from Lexington for some of these events, and I always forget. But those repeater work sites help keep the maintenance up. Are your batteries good? Are you installing something new? Do you need to put up a new antenna? Do you need to take down old cabling and old antenna from the tower at that particular site? Parks on the air. I don't know how many videos I've watched, and Chris, you could probably agree with this as well, that are just done by individuals. There's nothing wrong with doing a Parks on the Air as an individual, and that's how most of them get done. But you can also do them as a club. We're planning on a Parks on the Air mega, we're calling it the mega POTA, where the club is involved, and we've got multiple stations activating that park simultaneously. It's an idea that we came up with, and we can do a cookout while we're there and all that. But that could be a yearly thing, some kind of a POTA event that your club works with. And then speaking of a yearly event, what about winter and summer field days? Now, our club had been doing summer field days in the past. And then when Chris and I got involved, we started doing the summer field days a little bit more regularly. So we've had one ever since Chris and I have been involved. But we also started the winter field day. Now, the winter field day is not as convenient for a lot of folks, especially who live in the northern latitudes. But you can also make that fun. You might have an MCOM trailer, you might have an RV, you might have the ability to go tent camping in the cold. Not everybody's into that, but getting out there and practicing your skill sets for winter and summer field day events, those should be on the calendar. Zoom presentations that are just nice information or presentations again from outside folks and other ham radio mentors. Chris has been in conversations with and has an antenna from DX Commander. And Chris has done 2 or 3 videos on the antenna, but because he's worked with Callum over in the UK, Callum was nice enough to do a presentation for us. And the more you start putting out those tendrils with some of the vendors, they have people that they have on staff that do these presentations. Your club should be setting those up. So you need to add one of these types of activities on a kind of a schedule. Add them to your calendar so you can make them either annual, monthly, or whatever. Don't try to do too much at one time, baby steps, but try to add in these activities over time, and you'll be amazed at how your calendar fills up. Chris and I were looking at the calendars from this past year and from the year previous to that, and we were amazed at how many new things have been added to the calendar that are more activities that members can get involved in. More activities grows membership.
All right, well, let's talk about number 9. Meet current, but certainly new members, where they are in their journey, where they are in their knowledge. Hopefully, as a club, you're getting some new members. And if you start to do more and more of these activities like we're talking about, hopefully that will drive some new members. And part of ham radio, is it still a thing, is, well, what can it do and what can it be for different people? There's all kinds of different ways to enjoy ham radio. I don't enjoy every single one of them. I'm not interested in every single one of them. That's okay. And it's okay if somebody else is interested in some of that stuff. It's so much more than it was 50 years ago, which is where most people think about ham radio, is where it was 50 years ago. Computer-based, digital-based, there's all kinds of stuff going on with ham radio. Talking to satellites, talking to International Space Station, talking to airplanes. I got a aeronautical mobile just a day or two ago. So meet new members. Where are they? What is their interest level? Try to get them hooked up with a bit of a mentor, at least on a project. Oh, I'm going to put up a tower. I want to look at an antenna, or a radio, or I want to learn CW, or somebody in your club's probably got those knowledge and skills. May not be yourself. That's okay. Again, have that listing of assets of the club, and part of that is your people and their knowledge and skills they have, and provide those to new members. Try to be proactive about hopefully attracting new members, but get them going, get them plugged in, get them started so that they stay members. They stay active in ham radio. This is true for almost any hobby out there. People get excited, they get into it, they don't get any sort of support, and they'll fade right back out of a hobby. People will buy a motorcycle and sell it within the first year because they got out of it and they didn't really get plugged in anywhere, and it's just this expensive thing sitting in a garage, or whatever it is. Don't let that happen for ham radio, folks. Okay, so get your new members and get them plugged in and see what they're interested in, because you want new ideas and stuff as well anyway. Nobody can think of everything. Nobody can be infinitely creative. So get your new members in, meet them where they need to be, help them along. Get them calling a net. Calling a net is not difficult. Most of us find it quite fun. Get them into POTA. But some of these things can be a little bit challenging, but if you give them a mentor or a handful of mentors, doesn't have to be one person. We call them Elmers. hopefully your whole club is full of Elmers, because people will help different people who need it. Doesn't matter what your age is, just matters who has some knowledge that they can share with somebody else. So meet your new members and keep them interested. We talked about communications. Make sure they're plugged into whatever kind of communications your club has going on, and that's going to help not only maintain your club, we want to grow our clubs. We want to get more and more people into ham radio, because I think a lot of us believe that the more people that are in ham radio, the more fun it is.
Alrighty, our last item, again, these were the 10 Chris and I put together. We're looking for more comments down in the comment section of what you guys think would be things that clubs should be doing to help grow and all that. But number 10 on our list is hosting testing sessions, VE testing sessions, so that people can get their licenses. Now, today, there's online options, there's online study guides. A lot of that is tremendous. Our club is still traditionally holding VE testing sessions. We have volunteer examiners, which is what VE stands for. And of course, our president and his wife, and gosh, more than half the club is registered and able to actually act as a volunteer examiner. We have folks that can do tech, and we have folks that can grade the tests for generals, and we also have a bunch of extras in our clubs that can grade any of those exams, because once you're an extra and you're a VE, you can actually grade tech, general, and anybody going for their amateur extra. These testing sessions are incredibly important, and I'll give you one example, which is our club once again, because that's what we know. But during this pandemic, 6 feet apart, can't get in large groups, can't be indoors. We held a testing session outside with all these people just feet apart, but still doing the actual testing sessions, wearing our PPE and all the other things that went into it. We had our MCOM trailer out there as well for anybody who couldn't sit out in the weather. We had the MCOM trailer out there. And that shows prospective new license holders that this club does things, that this club gives back. Volunteer examiners don't get paid for any of this. This is giving back to your community and the people that are getting into the hobby. And one of the things that we've noticed is those folks that we give tests to, not all, not even close to all the folks that we've given tests to in the 2.5 years that Chris and I have been helping, is going to join your club because they're 2 hours away, or they're 2.5 hours away, or they may even have a local club. But we've gotten new members by just providing those tests, You can't really understand how to reach somebody until you start actually volunteering to provide those testing sessions. Those testing sessions are extremely important, a source of new members, and it allows you to give back. And it's yet again, another activity. We do ours quarterly, but we've given tests at the monthly meeting. We've given tests. We have a weekly Dairy Queen get together for a lot of the folks that are retired. But we've given tests at the Dairy Queen because all you need are 3 VEs to give that test. And we have so many VEs in the club, it's easy to do. If you don't have a lot of VEs, or you don't have a volunteer examiner, a program director in your club, step up. They're looking at you. Why aren't you doing that? Don't expect the club to do all of that out of the gate. They may not be doing that because maybe somebody else does it, or maybe they just haven't done it in a while. Find out how to get involved, give back to your community and to your hobby, and you'll see that it also helps grow your club.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our initial list for this session anyway. Again, let us know in the comments below what you're doing, other things you have. We could probably have 20 or 30 things on a list like this, but we wanted to at least start with a video like this because, again, we've thought about it for a couple of years. And there's more you can do. Be creative about it. Take your baby steps, like Brian said. And what else would you like to say, Brian?
Well, we keep hearing how clubs are losing membership because people are aging out. That is definitely true. But there are new members getting involved in the hobby. YouTube is a big help for that because that information is getting out there better. But ultimately, you can't depend on YouTube for everything. Most of us want to be able to do some of these things in groups. Your club is perfect for that. If you don't have a club in your area that is growing, is doing things, join the club and be that impetus, be the energy to help re-inject the excitement back in that club. If that club's not interested in that sort of thing, start a club. I know that can be a big step for a lot of people, but it's not as hard as you think it is if you take 10 steps like we've given you today and work down the list over time. You'll find like-minded people. You'll be amazed at folks who want to be a part of something that's growing, that's active. Those are the two key elements right there. Give yourself 2 to 5 years. This is not going to happen overnight. Chris talked about having a plan. Get your 2 to 5 year plan going and make sure that you're staying on target, stay organized. And clubs require leadership. They require consistency. They require some money. Okay. I'd love to tell you that all of this is free. It's not. We've talked a little bit about how to raise money, but above all, build momentum. That's the key. Build momentum. Stay patient. You're going to have some ups and downs. Every club goes through that. Look for ways to give back to your community. Look for those monthly and yearly activities. Grow your membership. And number one, have a great time.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, folks. Enjoy your radio, enjoy your hobby, and work with your club to make it better, and it makes it better for everybody.
I'm KY4BDP Brian for the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. If you have any suggestions, put them down in the comments. And Chris and I may come back with another top 10 on this very same subject in the future.